All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to all the new faces I see. I'm really happy to have you join us. Hello to the regulars. Good to see you as well. And I think this is like the sixth or seventh presentation we've had, and we've done like three or four other ones just to hang out and catch up. So welcome. Like I said, we started this out of like wanting to keep up during coronavirus, and since we're quarantined, might as well use it to connect and workshop and brainstorm some stuff. So it's been really good and awesome to do so, and excited to be back on here today. First off, we have a Slack channel. I'll put the link in the chat if you'd like to join. We got over 100 people now, so just to bounce ideas off and whatnot. We haven't really got that going and sharing stuff, but here soon enough, I imagine, when we get back to shooting stuff, posting work that we're working on, posting work that questions we have and whatnot, maybe job postings. So it's a good way to stay connected and meet some other people on here. If you're interested in portfolio reviews, we've had over 35 people do that, which is awesome, and be able to connect with students with pros or even pros with pros to look over some work and get some. And I've got a lot of feedback that it was awesome, and some people are asking for more. So if you're interested in giving a portfolio review, or if you're interested in having your portfolio reviewed, shoot me a message either here on Slack or on Instagram. I'd love to help connect you and kind of put you with, if you're kind of a wire person looking for somebody in that realm, I'll, try to connect you with somebody in that that space. And then, if you're somebody on a team or whatnot, I can connect you with a team photographer to look over your work. So really excited for today. We're having my buddy Adam Glanzman come in to share his work. Adam's a Boston freelancer. I think he went to University of Michigan, my home where I was born, and then went to Northeastern for grad school and is freelancing full time in Boston now. Really excited to have him share his work, and always somebody I look up to. So without further ado, let him kind of take the floor. And do you want me to start on the folder first, or?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to start with the recent work folder, might as well start there. But feel free to, click through whatever.
Yeah, I'll click through this and then bounce to the website. So,
cool.
Feel free to also, if you're not Adam and you don't have a question at the moment, try to mute your audio so we don't hear random noises and whatnot. So other than that.
Cool. Hey guys, and thanks Michael for hosting this. It's a really cool idea. Nice to see some faces while we're all quarantined in our respective homes. So it's nice to have something social going on for sure. But yeah, I thought I would just give a little background on kind of how I got into photography, and then would love to just answer any questions and just chat with you guys about anything you all might be curious about. So yeah, Michael said I went to school at Michigan, but before that I took a darkroom photography class in high school, where I kind of really got into photography. And when I got to school at Michigan, I was running track for the track team there. So I was pretty busy for a couple weeks until I got cut. And then all of a sudden had all this free time on my hands. So I thought I would check out the student newspaper. So I went over to the Michigan Daily, and I see Caitlin on here, and I know she's a Daily alumni as well. So it's always nice to see. But yeah, so the student newspaper was really where I got my education in photography and education in journalism. It was, an opportunity to shoot big collegiate sports and cover, news, not really, nationwide news regularly, but there were a couple of bigger stories that came through Ann Arbor or Detroit. So yeah, I learned a lot from all the other students at the Daily, and, working alongside the professionals who worked at the Ann Arbor News and the Detroit Free Press. And that's really where I learned about photography. So from there, I interned at Time Magazine when I graduated from school as a photo editor intern. And, that's kind of where I think my style really started to get refined. I was looking at thousands and thousands of photos every single day. The job was to basically monitor time.com, the website, and find photos to accompany the breaking news stories. So, you're looking at AP, Getty, Reuters, EPA, and every other small and large agency under the sun, as well as more boutique agencies like Redux and Trunk Archives. There's literally endless places where these photos are stored, and that's kind of where I learned about all that stuff. And if you guys have never heard of it, some of those agencies, look them up, start looking at those photos. It's a great way to start seeing other types of photography that are out there. And at least for me, that was instrumental in kind of learning about photography, learning what I really liked and what I maybe didn't like, and kind of putting that into my own style. So yeah, after time, I interned at the Red Sox. I moved to Boston in 2015, which was an amazing experience. I learned a lot from the photographers there. At the time, it was Billy Weiss and Michael Ivins were the photographers who brought me in. So that was a great experience. And, again, working alongside these professionals, these newspaper photographers and the wire photographers in town, really learned a lot just, by showing up, chatting, being a nice person, being, approachable and kind and courteous really goes a long way. I'm sure, I've listened to a couple of these other talks, and I think that goes for basically any industry, but especially in photography. It's such a small world, and you'll see these same people over and over again at various places. So, just being a nice person really is important, I think. So yeah, after the Red Sox, I was lucky enough to get a job at Northeastern, where I worked as a staff photographer for 4 years. Um, it was a lot of event work, a lot of portrait work, a lot of newsy assignments, with a PR twist, of course. You're working for a school, you have a specific story to tell. It's not, strict news, but it felt photojournalistic in some ways, which I definitely enjoyed. And then, yeah, about a year ago, I left Northeastern and went full freelance. So it's been freelancing since then. So it's been kind of an interesting ride for sure. And it's obviously a strange time to be freelance, as I'm sure some of you guys know. It's a weird world to navigate, especially when the time of coronavirus is upon us. So, but yeah, that is my brief story. So like I said, I love to answer any questions or talk about specific stories or really anything that might be helpful or interesting to you guys.
Let's see. Oh, I can't read that. Can you read that chat? I can't read it. Sorry.
Yeah. So how did you navigate the transition from a staff job to full-time freelance? What was your biggest challenge? So yeah, it's a good question. I think when I was working in Northeastern for 4 years, and throughout that whole time as a staffer, I was freelancing. So, building up kind of a base of clients who I've worked with, and who trust me to keep working for them once I were to be a full-time freelancer was super important. So, and then it's kind of like a jump of faith. You put in a lot of work. You prepare for the move to freelance by letting every photo editor and creative person, art director, fellow photographers, hey, I'm going to be doing this freelance thing. If you know anyone, or if you might need a photographer, would love to chat. So kind of just letting people know that you want to work, I think is important. And a lot of us forget. It's like, marketing yourself is not something I enjoy. It's like, it's kind of uncomfortable sometimes, telling people, hey, you should hire me, or, I'd love to work for you because X, Y, and Z. But, as my mom always said, if you don't tell them that you want to work for them, they'll never know. So, taking that jump of faith, I think is important. I'll just go down the list. So how did you build up the network of pubs you freelance for? So similar thing, just reaching out to people over time. A lot of people would see my work, and social media was huge and is huge for my business, kind of just posting what I'm working on, letting people know that I'll shoot sports, I'll shoot portraits, I'll shoot news, you know, commercial work, whatever it is, I think is important. So, you know, reaching out to these people, having obviously a portfolio of work to show is, you know, super important. And then trying to meet with these people or be put in touch with them, is, you know, probably the next step. So, should I just keep going down the list, Michael? You think that's
Yeah,
good?
yeah, keep going. I'll throw some in there at times and as well elaborate on stuff. So
Cool, cool. Let's see. Just to go off those, did most of your freelance jobs come from your internship slash staff jobs? Yeah, I think especially when I was starting to freelance in Boston, a lot of the work came from people I already knew. And you know, I moved to Boston and I knew two people, so it's not like I had a network here already or anything like that. But you know, when I was interning at the Red Sox, I was also trying to freelance, and I remember, you know, going to Panera and making a freelance Excel spreadsheet of like 60 people I wanted to work for. And then, you know, you try to find their email addresses and you try to get in contact with these people and you send them your portfolio, and, you know, you ask to chat on the phone, you ask to meet in person if they're in town, or, you know, if they're in New York, I would travel to New York and go meet with these people. Um, but yeah, being smart about how you're reaching out, and, you know, of course, being kind and courteous and respectful of everyone's time, I think goes a long way. But yeah, you know, it was a lot of emailing and honestly a lot of just, no, you're not ready to shoot for us, you know, or just flat out no response, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. So yeah, hope that answers that. um, so I'll talk about color gels and portrait stuff. That's what the next question is. um, so yeah, I've always loved looking at Wired and Fast Company. I think those magazines are, you know, really bright. Their portraiture is very unique. You know, their photographers, I who shoot for them regularly, have that, you know, that look where you can tell it's like colorful, bright, punchy, and you know, that's something I always really liked. And you know, you see that on the cover of magazine. I want to open the magazine. So I was, you know, I saw that look, and that was like something I wanted to learn more about. And then yeah, at Northeastern, we really had the opportunity to explore portraiture and you know, experiment with lighting and experiment with color and, you know, blurred motion. So I took that time at Northeastern to really like work on my portrait and work on my portrait lighting skills. Um, and a lot of it is just looking at work. You know, I have a massive 1,000+ image folder of inspiration portraits on my photo shelter. So it's, you know, I go back to that kind of archive of photos when I'm approaching a portrait and I'm stuck, or you know, I'm feeling in like a creative rut or something. So, you know, looking at a lot of work and then finding what you like, and just messing around in the studio is kind of how that came to be.
yeah, to elaborate on that, you know,
Yeah.
I think that you have your portrait style that you're talking about, the gels, and you know, kind of got that from Wired and whatnot. But also, a lot of that bleeds into your editorial work, which is awesome. And how have you like tried to? How has what you learned in studio and, you know, kind of playing around helped you see light better? Helped you what you know, features when you're shooting an event do you say, oh man, that, you know, this element in the foreground would make this nice color? And what is your kind of thought process there?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, was it Dustin was talking about this the other day in his talk? You know, having a style that's recognizable across all your work, I think, is super important. Um, so, you know, in editorial work, I like to shoot through things, or, you know, have an element in the front of the frame and have like layers. And, you know, it's not like I created that look or anything, but it's, you know, it's just something I always thought was kind of cool. And it's a way to make maybe a photo that's ordinary or not so exciting a bit more interesting. So I think in the studio, you know, portraiture, there's no, you know, there aren't the same journalistic ethics that go into editorial photography. So you can physically take something and put it in front of your lens, and like that's fine. That's part of, you know, that's your style, that's your look in portraiture. Obviously editorial photography, you can't do that. But you can find things to shoot through. You can find, you know, objects that are already there in front of you, sitting on the floor. You know, obviously not maneuvering the frame at all, but you're using what's in front of you and maybe getting a different angle. It's, you know, stuff that I'm sure we've all been told and thought about is, you know, find a different angle and, you know, find some nice patch of light. So yeah, I think it kind of just goes back to that, just kind of keeping like a distinct look when possible through all your different types of work, I think is important.
Hey, Adam, that tri-level look that you've got is such an awesome look and really such a signature look that I've tried to emulate in some of my shooting. I mean, when you're out again looking at editorial, how hard is it to be able to try to always kind of get to that look and sacrifice maybe a shot, or is it just kind of become second nature to you at this point, just looking for something again in the front and in the back and trying to frame up the subject that you're shooting?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, depends on, you know, what it is you're shooting, I guess. But you know, like just thinking of something I shot last week, this it was like a line for a food pantry for you know, coronavirus aid. And you know, you go to the front of the line, you introduce yourself to the people working, you know, make sure they're okay with you taking photos and it's not like an awkward situation. And then, you know, get some of the safe photos in front of you, get, you know, check your boxes off. And it depends, like maybe you're in a time crunch, maybe you don't have time to do that. So then you jump to what it is, what's your ideal shot, and, you know, try to find a different angle. So, you know, I guess I usually would start with something a bit more safe and then kind of work my way to push the envelope a little bit. So, you know, just kind of working the scene, I guess, if that makes sense. You know, take a loop around the block. So for last week's assignment, I walked around the block and I found this like alleyway that you could then see the line through, and then someone walked through the frame, and then all of a sudden you've got like 3 layers going on. Um, but yeah, I think just kind of, you know, maybe taking the photos, and again, depends on what you're shooting, but take the photos, maybe take a break, look around, see, you know, where else can I go to photograph this scene, or is there another vantage point I may have missed the first time around?
Thank you.
Yeah. Should I go back to this to the chat?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. How do you go about getting the creative direction for your portraits? Do you get a lot of freedom with deciding that, or do you work with a creative team? Yeah, so at Northeastern, it was very open. You know, me and the manager photographer, Matthew Meduno, who was incredible to work with and a, you know, close friend of mine. You know, we would both look at a portrait assignment we had coming up, and maybe we would chat and be like, hey, let's go in the studio, let's try this light over here, let's throw this gel on there. You know, a lot of experimenting. So when I was at Northeastern, it was kind of like a team of 2 a lot of the time, which was awesome to, you know, bounce ideas off each other. And, you know, I think a lot of us do that now with any assignment. You know, if I'm curious about something or I want to try something, I'll call up a friend or text a friend and be like, what do you think about this? Or, you know, send 2 pictures and be like, which one do you like better? So yeah, bouncing ideas off of my colleagues and other photographers, I think, is important. But yeah, for a lot of the editorial work I get now, it's it goes both ways. Sometimes the editor will say, we saw your style, we love your, what, you know, this look, do this for us. Sometimes it's, you know, I want this specific, no lights, natural, you know, natural look, go outside, do something simple. So it depends on the client, I'd say, for maybe how much creative freedom you get, or, you know, or what it is they're really looking for. If it's a story or a commercial work, there might be a different, you know, a different creative vision. Let's see. So how are you staying safe on your current projects, like the COVID testing site images? Hey, Paul, fellow Boston photographer. Hope you're staying safe in Watertown. Um, yeah, so I think like a lot of photographers covering the virus right now and doing very similar things. I've got a mask, I've got gloves, and Lysol wipes and all that stuff in my car. So yeah, just being super conscientious about wiping my gear down, wiping my hands down. Computer, keys, wallet, phone. It's obviously a lot to keep track of. But yeah, doing the best I can, trying to keep my distance when covering these things or when photographing people right now. So yeah, I don't know that anyone's kind of mastered this yet, but if someone has better tips on that, I would love to hear them as well. Um, cool. So business question: do you find clients have set rates, or do you set your rates? So it depends for sure. I think a lot of editorial rates, in my experience, the client dictates the rate. If more commercial work, sometimes you might have more wiggle room, is what I found. I usually like to ask, questions you should ask if you're, pricing out a commercial shoot. Our usage, how will the photos be used? Rights, do they need to own all rights, or will they be retained by the photographer? And obviously what it is they want you to photograph, and the scale of the shoot. And there's an endless list. But Getty has a great photo calculator to punch in some numbers, and it'll give you a rough number for how much you should quote a shoot. And I definitely use that calculator pretty regularly when I'm pricing out gigs. But yeah, if you guys want to like answer follow-up stuff or whatever, I can do that, or I can just keep going down the list, whatever you guys prefer. I don't want to put you guys to sleep.
You're good. Feel free to shout if you have any additional on top of some of the things he's saying. But otherwise, we'll keep going down the list, and I'll throw some questions in there as well. So
Cool. So it says, how much of your freelance career is making pitches and or receiving assignments from editors you already know? Has that changed over time? So pre-coronavirus, I wasn't pitching a ton, I'd say. A lot of the work was, luckily coming my way, or it was through people I already have been working with, have relationships with. And then, if I saw something really interesting, that pertained to a specific outlet, I would maybe pitch it to them. But, I never really had a huge amount of success doing that. So now that we are in the midst of coronavirus, I think that's kind of flipped for me. I've been pitching constantly. So, putting together, at least I try to put together concise emails, pitch to editors I've already worked with about a handful of ideas. So usually my MO with pitching is I'll put together 3 or 4 ideas into one email, with like a sentence or 2 on each idea, with some, if it's already a story that's kind of run and maybe a small outlet somewhere, I'll just hyperlink it in there basically. So that's kind of how I go about pitching. If you guys have other ideas or thoughts on that, I would love to hear, or if anyone wants to talk about how they go about pitching work, I think it would be awesome to hear from you guys as well.
yeah, maybe to elaborate on that, I guess I can go back to it too. Is one of the stories I know a lot of people on here have seen and love is the 75-year-old wrestling champ, that guy.
Right.
Talk about that project and how all that came about, and I guess this is an example of one of those stories. So
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's good call. So yeah, when I was at Northeastern, staff members can take classes for free. So I got my master's in journalism while I was there, taking night classes. One of the classes, they asked us to do a feature story, and the professor knew I was a photographer, so she let me do a photo story, which was great. And basically, I either saw something or read something about arm wrestling. I thought it would be a fun photo project, and did some research. online. I thought there must be someone who does this at a high level near me, and I found Norm. So he's not on email or social media or anything, but I found someone who knows him and was invited to this practice in a basement in the middle of Massachusetts somewhere. And that was my introduction to Norm, the gentleman on the right. But yeah, so I worked on that story for a couple months, met up with him a handful of times, and wrote a like a full story, a full article on him as well, in addition to the photos. And then at the time, there was this pretty well-known photo blog called A Photo a Day, which was run by Melissa Little. And it was a really cool kind of platform where you could post a photo, and it's similar to this idea. People would respond and give you tips, and it was a really cool way, as someone who was like very new to the photojournalism world, to get feedback from Patrick Smith and all these photographers whose work I had only seen in newspapers and magazines. So that was kind of a unique thing, and I think Instagram in a way has kind of taken that space in the photojournalism community, where people can kind of get in touch with these photographers who might seem like on a different pedestal, which is all nonsense and a different story. But it was a way to kind of get feedback, which I was still am really hungry for. So a photo editor at the New York Times saw my photo on that blog, reached out to me. He was like, "This sounds like a cool story," Jeff Ferticella, and he was like, "This sounds like a really cool story. Would love to, chat as the story progresses, more or less." And basically, when the story felt complete to me, I sent it to Jeff. He gave me his feedback. There was some back and forth. I shot a couple more days with Norm, and eventually, it ran in the paper as a 2-page spread. So that was definitely pretty neat for me. And it was kind of a roundabout pitch, so to speak, but it goes back to just getting your work out there. If you have something cool, share it. People may or may not see it, and you never know if you don't. We kind of share it out there. So yeah, that's the background on that story. And it was definitely a fun one to work on. It was cool to learn about professional arm wrestling, which sounds so bizarre. I know we're all sports, or a lot of us cover sports pretty heavily in this conversation. So it was a unique sport for sure. And you want me to talk about esports?
No, I mean, you can bounce around however you want.
Yeah.
I was just going to play stories, so.
Cool. Let's see. What is your go-to lighting equipment? Any favorite brands or setup? So yeah, I wouldn't say I have like a specific lighting setup I go to most. I use Policy Buff equipment. If I could only have one light, I would probably have a Einstein Policy Buff and a Octabank. I like to use a grid on my Octabank to kind of narrow the light. You get generally a bit more shadow on one side of the subject's face or objects, whatever you might be photographing. But yeah, I think that kind of maybe a little harsher look is something I like. But yeah, there's so much lighting gear. I've used Pro Photo lights. I love Pro Photo lights. It's kind of, what do you have access to? You can do the same look with a speed light, a knockoff brand that cost, $80. So it really kind of just depends on how it is you're using the light, or, how you're modifying the light to get the look you might be going for. And Jill asked, what lenses do you use specifically for your portraiture work? I pretty much stick to the 50. I have a 50-1.2 and an 85-1.4, and I pretty much use those. I'll use the 35-1.4 a lot as well for my portraits. It depends. For stuff where I'm working with one person, those are the lenses I'll stick to. If it's something where you're photographing a whole team of people, and Michael knows you've got a lot of people coming through, you can't be worried about your 50-1.2 back focusing. So you'll probably use a 24-70 or 24-105 and shoot at f8 or f13, whatever it is. So it goes I think it depends on what you're photographing, but for a lot of my work, if it's just me and one person or me and an assistant and one person, I'll usually use prime lenses. So, yeah. So we got to the end of the question list. If I missed something, please let me know.
Hey, Adam, if I could ask,
Yeah.
as long as we're on some technical questions,
Yeah.
I'll go out and shoot a hockey game, and I'll come back with 600 shots, for 10 that I post and use.
Mhm.
Just wondering, what's the school of thought? What's your school of thought as far as what's too many shots for a job, too few shots? If I'm shooting too much, is it easy to not worry about things? If I'm shooting too few, am I going to miss? What's your school of thought as far as how often I should actually be taking pics?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, not to sound like a broken record, but kind of depends on maybe who you're photographing for. If I'm shooting for Getty or another wire agency, I'll probably take more pictures than if I'm shooting for like Players Tribune or something where they want, Getty needs a lot of stock photos of the new player or the guy who's just been traded to the team. So you want to take a lot of photos of that guy. A different outlet or maybe a newspaper might only run one photo. So you need that best photo, whatever it is. And that's not to say you can't get it doing for whoever you shoot for. But I definitely probably think about that. Maybe not think about it, but just subconsciously, if I know if I have a massive shot list, I'll shoot more. And if not, maybe I'll try to focus on one specific thing or one athlete or one moment, and try to put my attention towards that. But I guess like a general rule of thumb, I think anywhere from like 500 to 1,000 pictures for like a regular season hockey game probably sounds right to me. I don't shoot a ton of hockey, honestly, so I may not be the best person to ask, but I think that sounds like a safe number. I'm sure you're right in there. And obviously we're shooting digital cameras. It's not like you're wasting film. So I yeah, hope that answers the question.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. So, nice. But yeah, any other thoughts or questions? Happy to chat. So Steve averages 1,200 to 1,500 at hockey games.
I got to up my game apparently.
How many frames do you think you take at a hockey game, Michael?
So if I'm on a hockey game, and again, I'm to your point, I'm going through in my head kind of who I'm shooting and who I want to shoot for. But yeah, I'll do like 600, 700 or so roughly. Mm-hmm. So, but if I find if I'm able to look back and see that I've got a couple of the shots that I want, then I know I can throttle back. But if it's like coming in after the second period and I don't have anything that I'm really excited about, then I feel like I kind of need to kind of keep going. And certainly the third period often has better emotions and better reactions than the first. So
right.
You just kind of got to follow the action. But once I feel better about actually capturing something, then I feel like I can throttle back a bit.
Totally.
Can you talk about any of the workshops you've been to before, or if there's any that like you've potentially spoken at, or things that you might suggest for like younger photographers? I'm currently looking for like workshops to do if they actually keep going later on in the year or sometime in early 2021.
Yeah.
And yeah, just more about that.
Yeah, good question. So yeah, I mean, workshop wise, I've attended the Eddie Adams workshop, and I definitely would suggest you apply, if you haven't already. And I'm more than happy to look at portfolio ideas or any, if you have a body of work you're thinking about using to apply, or any portfolio review like Michael mentioned. I'm more than happy to take a look and give my 2 cents. But for me, that was a great one to kind of meet some other photographers and editors and people who are doing this at high level. Was super helpful for me. And you meet a lot of really interesting people and hear a lot of interesting speakers. I've also heard the mountain workshop is really helpful as well. I haven't personally attended it, so I can't speak from experience, but I've heard that's a good one. And then the Image Deconstructed, I believe, has one, and Geek Fest, is that still happening? Does anyone know? No?
I wish.
Yeah. So
That was the thing. A photo a day was, the kind of the thing. So
yeah, that was like the community.
yeah, that's kind of the goal with this. Once we get going, is kind of post some work and get feedback and whatnot. So yeah, I mean that's where I met you. And
Yeah.
a lot of that, like you said, getting Scott Scherzante or somebody to comment on your photo. You're like, I'm
Right.
12 years, I'm 20 years old, and he's
Right.
getting on stuff. So yeah, that community is great.
Totally. Yeah, no, it's I think there is definitely like a spot that left open in the photo community now, and that this sounds like a great opportunity to kind of fill that void. So, but yeah. What are you thinking of applying for, Caitlin? Other opportunity? I guess you're the Getty Sport intern right now, right?
Yeah, so like currently very much on hold. I was 3 weeks into my internship, and then I was about to do the Indian Wells, so I don't know if there's anyone on the West Coast here that was going to do that as well, but I would have met you, maybe. But yeah, I applied to Eddie Adams. I tried hearing about the summit workshops, but they're kind of a hefty price, so I was trying to like see if there was like financial aid or a grant or anything I could apply to, but just looking for more, because I feel like the more I can learn now, the better.
Totally. And I'm sure you'll, once sports pick up again, you'll obviously learn a ton from all the great mentors at Getty, and all the great photographers who work on staff and freelance there. Will be awesome to experience.
Yeah.
Maybe another question to throw in there is,
Yeah.
talked about you hating marketing, which from my standpoint, I feel like you're great at. And maybe talk about your Instagram and how you see that, and how you, I assume you just kind of post what you do, but that's really kind of the front page for all of us these days. And I know your Instagram aesthetic, as much as I hate that word, is very consistent. What is strategies you use there, and how you use that to market yourself, like you said.
Yeah, I'm definitely not like a social media guru or anything, but I think when like you said, when I shoot something new, I post it on Instagram. And I kind of use it as a tool just to get my work out there, almost like a photo blog of some sort. I still have a photo blog on my website that maybe I should remove at this point because it hasn't been updated in a while. But just as like a visual diary, as something you could go back at the end of the year and be like, oh yeah, I covered this, I did that. This will be fun to revisit next year when I cover the same event. How can I photograph it differently? So in that sense, it's like a personal way to kind of keep track of what I've done. And then obviously a marketing tool to hopefully get it in front of the right people who may or may not be in the position to hire me for work at some point. And yeah, there is no like secret. If I photograph something I like, I'll post it on there. And, I kind of use it as like a motivation tool for myself. If I'm at an assignment that might seem kind of boring, or, not all that exciting, the light sucks, it's dark, or the subject is, not cooperating or whatever, I'll at least try to get one photo that I would be proud of, or at least comfortable sharing with the world on social media. So if I can do that, then, I'll be, somewhat happy with the shoot, or at least didn't think I fucked up the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I see a question. When you're looking at your own work or someone else's, what are the first 3 things you look for that make a great photo? So yeah, I always look for a nice light first. That's like my favorite thing to photograph. If I see good light, or a nice patch of light or a good shadow, I love that in a photo. And then, you know, like everyone else, you know, great composition is important, and then, you know, moment or color, you know, is nice. But, you know, if you can combine one or two of those things, it's a really good photo. And, you know, rarely do you get all three or four. If you're including color, you know, I like to include color. But yeah, you know, light, moment, composition, I think are, you ask any photographer, those are probably the big things they look for.
Hey Adam, this may have been asked already. I'm sorry, I'm late.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, man. Hey, we talked just a little bit about you. You come back with a lot of stuff. We're just like, how in the world did you find that? I think of like some of your tennis shots with just framing up hats in your foreground or shooting through a fence and things of that nature. Like things I feel like a lot of us kind of just walk right by and don't even give a second thought. We talked just a little bit on that, just how you approach looking for things, just, you know, different and new.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to see you, Andrew. Yeah, like, so the tennis hat photo was, so that one, I guess I was walking around the stadium. It was, you know, usually I'm shooting at 2.8. And I, you know, saw this nice woman in a hat, and I just took like a wide photo with it, like 24, you know, super wide, showing the place. And then I like stuck around for a little bit, and I just started shooting with like, you know, different lenses. So simple things people will say is like, just try a different lens on this, like, you know, thing you've already photographed a bunch. And, you know, started cranking up the f-stop to like f13 or whatever. And then you're, you know, you just have a totally different look when, you know, probably 90% of the stuff I shoot is at 2.8 or under anyway. So kind of just like changing up what I normally do is, you know, a way to find a different angle, I think. And then, you know, at Fenway, for example, I've been lucky enough to photograph there quite a bit. So I feel like I know a lot of the cool spots, and I know where the light's going to come in and when it's going to come, and it depends on the time of year and all, you know, all that. So just being comfortable with the venue, and as I'm sure you are at your school, where, you know, you know where things are going to look cool because you've shot it 50 times. So being comfortable with the area, but then also it's like going to a brand new stadium or going to a brand new field where, you know, hey, at this place you're allowed to go up there, where, you know, back in Boston you can't even like come anywhere remotely close to that line or whatever it is it may be. So just kind of, you know, opening your eyes up to a new venue, maybe trying a new lens, or, you know, waiting for the nice light kind of opens it up to different types of photos. So I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if somebody already asked that, but no, I just thought it'd be good to just you kind of talk about that, since I a lot of times when I'm in a rut, I just kind of think like, all right, what would Adam be looking for here that's just kind of like different or something different? Truth, I do.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, anyone else have any other questions?
Wrap up here in a few. We got time for one or two more questions if we got them.
Do you have any recent personal projects that you've worked on?
Recent? Not really. I mean, at the beginning of quarantine, I was like photographing studio stuff in my home to kind of try to stay busy. When in reality, I should be rebuilding my portfolio like Andrew did. So I've been putting off the important tasks, like, you know, redoing my website. But yeah, in terms of real personal projects, it's definitely something I wish I was doing more of. I haven't really right now. And then it's sort of this weird thing where, you know, there was this big rally yesterday in Boston, and I wanted to photograph it, and I pitched it to a couple places, and no one was interested in hiring me to shoot this thing. And I was like, oh, should I go anyway and photograph this? but I didn't end up going because I kind of thought, what am I adding to the noise here? What is my contribution here? Or am I just another person who should be inside right now? So yeah, kind of like toting that line of, what's smart and what's socially responsible right now. And, I don't have the answer, but it's definitely something I think about with, in terms of going out and taking pictures during the coronavirus. So.
Adam, as a freelancer, how concerned are you kind of looking over the horizon into a post-COVID world where mobility presumably will be significantly curtailed? It's going to be a while before the kind of airline volumes and capacity are back. I mean, how concerned are you about suddenly becoming just a Boston-based photographer and kind of almost landlocked as opposed to somebody who can travel to Cuba or travel to Anaheim Stadium or travel elsewhere for work? What does that do to your future as a professional?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a daunting thing with the unknown of what lies after coronavirus. I like to think that businesses will rebound, sports will come back. At some point in maybe the distant future, there will be a return to normalcy. But I don't know. It's obviously a bit scary, I'm sure, for all of us who are freelancing or who have staff jobs, and we don't know what exactly the future holds. But I am optimistic that there will be things to photograph in the future, and people will still need photos and still have a need and a hunger for good imagery, and especially companies who are trying to rebound on the right foot and remind the public that we're still here. We still offer X, Y, and Z service, or we're still a university in Boston, and you should come to school here, or whatever it is it may be. I think people will kind of have an even bigger need for that when there is, when we can go outside and have a beer at the bar with our friends. So I think there will be some return to normalcy, and I don't know when that's going to be, and or how it will impact photography, but I'm hopeful.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Add about these, talk about these projector portraits that you did before COVID hit.
Yeah, so that was a fun project. I bought a projector a couple months ago, and I've been messing around with it for different portrait stuff and different still life stuff. And yeah, NASCAR, who I've been lucky enough to work with, they're super open to creative ideas, and basically they're like, yeah, do what you want. What do you feel like shooting? And we talked earlier, it's the client can sometimes dictate how creative or not creative you can be, and this was a awesome example where they gave me almost free reign to do what I wanted. So yeah, basically, I bought a projector, and we found a dark room, and you project the light onto these drivers from different angles. It took a bit of finagling to find the right angle, the right height of the projector, so you don't get a crazy weird shadow. But yeah, I talked to Matt Dirksen with the Rockies, who has done some projector work, and he gave me some tips on how to photograph with a projector, essentially. But yeah, it's not rocket science or anything that any of us can't do. It just it took a bit of maneuvering for sure until I got it to look somewhat as like I envisioned. And then yeah, I did a couple little video clips. I've been trying to expand my repertoire a bit and do some more video work. So shot a little, a few seconds at 120 frames per second, super slow-mo, and you can make little boomerang things with that. So yeah, just trying to take something where you already have the access, you already have the time, and what can you deliver to the client that's like a step above what they asked for. I think that's definitely a reason, maybe I've gotten the call back. It's a reason for them to keep you around. So just kind of over delivering and obviously hitting all your bases and doing all the safe photos. In addition to this, we shot everyone on white with 2 umbrellas, super boring. So making sure you can do that standard stuff, which will probably get used more than these creative orangey yellow photos. They need those photos on white or gray because they're going to cut it out and put it on TV or on the websites, whatever it is. So making sure you can do those essential things first, I think, is maybe more important.
Any last questions? I don't want to take too much of time today, but man, it's been great. This is really enjoyable and great stuff.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been fun. But yeah, if anyone wants to email me or reach out on Instagram or whatever it is, I'm always happy to chat photography or look at work. So don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to chat.
Well, great. Well, thanks, Adam, for your time, and drop Adam a thank you in the chat. Really appreciate him taking the time to come hang today. If you're interested in the Slack, shoot me a message. I'll try to find the Slack link. We messed it up last time, but we finally found it. So if you're interested in joining that, shoot me a message and I can send it around. We'll do this again either Friday or Monday. Still trying to lock in the final next presenter. If you all have any other presenters you'd love to hear from, or I'm happy to reach out to anyone, shoot me a message and I will do my best to book them for this and see if we can get them to share some work and talk and reach out to Walter Yost. I'm trying to talk about some of the Jordan stuff, but hopefully we'll get maybe something there and got some other great ideas. So otherwise, look forward to seeing everybody later this week or early next week. And thanks everybody for your time. If you got any questions or anything, shoot me a message. Have a great day. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you for doing this. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Joe.
This will be on YouTube as well if you'd like to share it. So
Thank you.
Thank you.